What's up? I'm gonna keep this brief so you can get to the 2 free episodes. So I just uploaded 2 free episodes from my online workshop I did, all about how I shoot with brands. You can use this code for $50 off, and you can find the link in the description. So there are 17 episodes in this workshop, and we involve an actual brand so you legit see like how I work with a brand, how I pitch to a brand and make a PDF to complement it, the planning and the pre-production that go behind a shoot, and of course you'll see the shoot. You'll get a behind the scenes look of me on set shooting for the brand. We take it back to the studio and I show you how I organize and edit my work. And as a working creative, I think it's so important to find clarity in the direction you're going and also find balance. So thanks for your interest. All the info you'll need will be linked below, as well as the second free episode. And with that, roll the clip. In this episode, I want to talk about pre-production planning. I do have this kind of scrappy run and gun style, but there truly is a method to the madness, and it all happens here. I want to walk through how I plan beforehand to be better prepared before I go out to shoot. How I find locations, how I generate inspiration and ideas, and how to integrate the client product within that. And to cap it off, we'll talk a little bit about my style and how I want to integrate that client product within my own photography style. So probably the most important part is choosing your location. Right now, it's October in Washington, which means it's on the cusp of winter, and in that means snow is starting to settle in the mountains, so that's pretty much a no-go. There'd have to be a lot of planning and a lot of details that go into making that happen that we just don't need to get into, so I think the beach, the Washington coast, would be the best option for this time. The general idea of the shoot was illustrated in that PDF doc. The location was Washington, and I wanted to integrate the client product within my style, and the location, those ideas, and all that was shared right in that trip-specific PDF I sent to them. One thing to keep in mind, too, is these are day packs, so it'd be silly to set up a camping scene because they're not hiking in with these tiny packs with a tent. So I don't need to go into planning some camp scene. Just be logical, know your foundations, and plan your location and how you're going to execute that from there. So I'm going to open up Pinterest here and show you how I generate some ideas and inspo for the shoot. So I've already went ahead and made the board quite a few months ago, but this is what it looks like. So as you scroll through the board, you can see it's pretty consistent imagery. It's all based around the beach. There's some of my images that I referenced in there as well. Just to build a good inspo board. If you've never used Pinterest, it's really simple and the best place to make boards. So if I come up here and I type a search in and I say ocean hiking, right there you see some photos of ocean hiking, and I like this one right here, and let's say I want to save that to the board. So I say save, and I'm going to save it to the Palante shoot board. Boom. And you click in, and it's right there at the very top. So as you populate your board and you get all your ideas and inspo there, at the very bottom, there's this find some ideas for this board. So you can click on that, and for the most part, it's going to be very fitting to what was on the board. And if you back up to the main sheet, you see there's more studio focus stuff of this dude laughing and some black and white images that aren't as beachy, but it is highlighting the mood I want. So you're going to see certain ideas in here that are more focused in studio and not so focused on like the beach hiking thing. And that's how good Pinterest is. It finds those very similar images to what you're saving on your board. Yeah, and there's a bunch of really solid imagery here that could totally be on that board. So we're back at the board, and let's say there's an idea I really, really like, and I want to find images more specific to that idea. Let's go with this one here. And as you scroll down, you see quite a lot of similar images in that, like, this looks like it's shot on film, or I think it said it was shot on a 5D Classic, and you see all these images that look like they were shot on an older camera. It's insane how accurate Pinterest is when they find and populate other ideas. And as you find ideas you like, maybe this one, you can just save it right to your board. And again, populates at the top. which further curates the board and the similar ideas you can find within Pinterest. So I like to have this for myself as a reference and also for the client to show them, hey, this is a general idea of what I'm thinking. It's a great thing to have to stay on track as you keep planning out your shoot. And as Pinterest is a great source of inspiration and a good way to get the ideas flowing, I think it's really important to come up with your own and draw them out. So they're very scrappy, they're very not good, but I like to draw out my images. So this is frame by frame, ideas with descriptions right below them. I am just not good at drawing, but the point for this is to just get my ideas on paper so I don't have to like think about them or remember them later. I can just refer to this and they're there. This is from an older shoot, but I had this idea of my friend Bree against a car door. I had an idea of her in the tent, and I mean, you can see the beautiful tent drawing right there. That's the edge of the tent, or it's supposed to be. And there was this stump, and I wanted them chilling there with their dog on the side of the stump. And the last shot is a more wider casing shot that is just focused on the scene as a whole. So under each drawing is a little description of it. Sometimes I list like even specifics like 35 millimeter focal length, or hey, instead of this option, maybe also try this with that scene. It's pretty straightforward. It doesn't have to be pretty. Another thing I'll usually do is below it or on the side, I'll write a props list. So for this shoot, I want to do like a film camera, some snacks. We'll obviously have the backpacks and the jackets. I like to do all that just for organizational purposes. It just one less thing to think about and one less thing to remember later on. Recently, I picked up an iPad and I used to journal in this, but I decided to upgrade my quality of art and my drawings and do it on here. A few weeks ago, I went to the location we're shooting. You can see landscape photos of the location, but I'm not there to shoot landscapes. I'm there to shoot subjects experiencing the landscape. So I wanted to find little nooks, little places I could shoot subjects in for myself. I took some sample photos with the idea of shooting subjects within them as I was there. These are all just on my 5D Mark IV. And then I took the time to take them and Procreate and do some beautiful stick figure drawings. Again, the quality of this is not important. It's just getting your ideas on paper. So you'll see the first one is a river shot. There's someone jumping over the river with the backpack on. I didn't draw the jacket. I'm not that talented. But it gets the idea across. It gets the point there. And I wrote a little bit of text at the top just explaining what I was trying to get. So all those images you just saw, as you scroll through, you see them here with my stick figures drawn in and a little bit of text, descriptions, ideas. They're just there to get the point across to further organize yourself for when the shoot actually happens. Again, it's just one less thing to think about. It's one less thing to try to remember. It's simply a guideline. And I think it's really important to share these, like even if it's not beautiful artwork, it gets the point across that, hey, these are my photos and these are my ideas. The Pinterest board you're sharing is a curated collection of not your photos usually. It's photos and inspiration you're drawing from the internet. And when you show them this is your work. And as scrappy as it may be, it's still your work. You're getting your point across and you're telling the client, hey, I came up with these ideas and this is what I want to execute for you. As you're drawing out these shots and as you're planning, I think it's important to think about the brand and the client and integrating that within your own photography style. One of the biggest questions I get asked a lot is how I go about my composition. And to be honest, until I started thinking about it, I really didn't know what I was doing with it. But now, as I started actually thinking about it, I've seen small little things that subconsciously go through my mind that I've now been able to put on paper and share with you guys. The rule of odds is simply having an odd number of subjects. So instead of 2 or 4 or 6, having a 1, 3, 5, all that. I usually try to keep it under 5. For instance, if I'm shooting subjects, like I don't want 7 people running around, like it just is too much at that point. I chose 3 people for this shoot specifically to cater to the rule of odds. With the rule of odds, think about it. You have a defined middle. So one person, one person, one person. There's something about human nature just likes that composition, that likes having that defined middle element. It's a weird thing to explain, but it makes sense, and I see it throughout my images constantly, the 1, 3, or 5 rule. One thing I cater toward too is center framing. Very rarely am I spacing something off to the third or spacing something off low or high. And most of the time, my subject is directly in center frame. And sometimes I break that rule, but like I said, most of the time. I think the biggest thing that defines how I think about composition is I think about my image with page margins, essentially. You know, when you're in Microsoft Word and you have that like inch space between both sides, that's what I'm thinking. A lot of times I'll be shooting live view with that rule of thirds grid on my live view screen. So if my subjects are center frame, I'm going to use those lines for margins. So the subject on the left and the subject on the right are going to peek just outside those lines or within those lines, however it's being framed, with equal margins. And same goes for the edges of the images. It's like page margins on a doc. I want an even amount of space to really dial in that composition. So if the subject is here, I want this much space at the top and the same exact amount at the bottom. And even if I'm shooting a subject or a feature or something, I'll even balance out the objects that are in my foreground to better suit that composition. And that pretty much sums up what I do for pre-production. I use it as a roadmap. I use it as a guideline. So when I show up, it's going to be there when I need it. It's going to be something consistent. But I kind of live by this rule of 40 to 60% planning things and allowing room for spontaneity. This is exactly what pre-production allows, is that room to just be inspired by what's in front of you, but having a general direction and a framework to work within. And that wraps up the pre-production section. Let's go out and shoot.